Welcome back to another episode of the AI in Manufacturing podcast here on Industry 4.TV. My name is Kudzai Manditereza and I'm your host. In this session, we will discuss how to reduce waste and improve efficiency with AI powered quality control. And joining me on this session is Willem Klein, who is the CEO and co-founder of Zetamotion. Willem, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I very much look forward to the conversation.
Same here. I'm really looking forward to our discussion today. But before we dive into this topic, I would love for our audience to get to know you a bit. So maybe can you tell us about your background, what your journey has been like, and what was that spark that led you to found Zetamotion?
That's a very good question, yes. And it is a fun journey indeed. Technically, I don't have a formal technical background. I do have a certain technical affinity ever since I started watching all of Star Trek with my mom and took apart the first vacuum cleaner at home and almost fully successfully put it back together. And have always been part of the kind of computer world with my friends playing at LAN parties, and then later getting involved with the German CCC, Chaos Computer Club, for those who know. I then academically progressed through a multidisciplinary path involving some business, some law, and eventually finding myself in philosophy, and in particular philosophy of technology, and in that a subfield called technology ethics, which at the time nobody was talking about, and of course now everyone is talking about technology and AI ethics. But that's the path I took kind of academically, and eventually after finishing my PhD and looking at options, working in academia or doing something else, this possibility opened up with the advent of new tools and new developments in AI. We found an interesting space applying some of the earlier AI to, in our case, at first motion capture and 6 degrees of freedom tracking, but then very quickly saw that there's actually even more opportunity in a more general machine vision space, and then from the general back to the very specific, which is quality control and the inspection of various objects and helping manufacturers automate, which is exactly your topic, and it's exactly where we land squarely with the theme of the podcast and why I'm here. But that's the path roughly that lies behind.
Absolutely, that's such an interesting and very rich background. It's interesting to know that you've studied what you call the philosophy of ethics of technology. You said, and I find that gives people a very different and unique perspective, especially now that we've got really AI taking over. I had a guest here previously. They studied I think it was epistemology or something like that, and then they've got like a really very interesting take on what is context and things like that. So I find that that varied background really gives people interesting perspectives. So definitely looking forward to unpacking a lot of that here with you. So I mean, as you know, really in our industry we've got no shortage of buzzwords, right? We've really gone from industry 4.0, industry 5.5.0 now. A lot of people talk about it, humanoids, physical AI, and things like that. And everyone is talking about making AI happen on the factory floor. So I speak to a lot of vendors here who provide AI. I speak to a lot of end users who are implementing AI. So there's just so much, going on out there, so much noise. So to kind of like set the context here, I would like for you to sort of like explain to us, where does Zetamotion fit into this, AI landscape, and how do you think about your role in this space?
Yeah, it's fascinating to look at the history of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and essentially we can go back all the way to Wittgenstein and then his pupil Alan Turing, where even that far back, or if you want to go really far back, you could even say that Aristotle was doing the first examinations of what constitutes a mind, and with that laying the very foundations of what would make it possible to examine how to construct a mind or construct an intelligence. But through especially the 20th century, we've seen a lot of visionaries already seeing the opportunities and the possibilities, but the application took quite some time, and a lot of it was also hampered by the slow growth of computational resources. So it simply was a matter of time, since we hadn't cracked the master algorithm to emulate an actual human brain yet. And we're doing this kind of brute forcey approach right now, and that relies on just massive computation. We had to wait to a certain degree for suitable computation to be available. And along that timeline, where you could see early potential, but it was difficult to see major breakthroughs, the industry was co-evolving essentially in a similar trend with a lot of hesitation. There were some early pioneers, and they are now really pulling ahead, but the majority was still quite hesitant. What was a huge moment was really what we call the GPT moment, right? Because that for the first time really drove home the point that there's something big there and everyone could experience. Previously, if you had a big AI project in an industrial context, that might be a major project. It might be a huge investment before you can see results. And a lot of it is still human impression, right? Human judgment. It needs to be impressive to upper management, otherwise they won't invest in it. And it can be very expensive. But with GPT, suddenly anyone could see, wow, there's something really powerful here. And very quickly, a lot of in rapid succession, you could read about one after another huge success cases where industrial AI really made a huge impact. And that's what we see picking up quite a bit now. A lot more manufacturers feel like they don't want to be left behind. They feel like we can no longer just wait and stand by and see where it goes. I think everyone sees where it's going and nobody wants to miss out. Yet, at the same time, while it's promising, it turns out to be quite difficult in many cases. Not too long ago, there was a study by MIT that was published and was looking at the landscape and the success rate of generative AI projects in an industrial context. And I believe the error rate or the fail rate of these pilots was tremendous, was above 90% of attempted generative AI pilots didn't work, right? And only 10% or so or less succeeded. And those tended to be the ones that were expert driven, working with people who are expert in that niche and might have some tools to really make it happen. And you asked, where do we situate ourselves? Well, that's essentially where we situate ourselves. Currently, we are primarily here to solve very specific problems, most importantly, the usual bottlenecks of data, time, and manpower. But we are on a greater mission, if you will. And in that greater mission, we are looking to really democratize machine vision and democratize these automated tools to the same degree that ChatGPT democratized the use of large language models and these kind of technologies. So text-based, AI, let's call it that, and we're looking to democratize vision-based AI, specifically in the context of doing inspection.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super interesting that you mentioned these reports from MIT. I don't know how many reports I've really gone through in the past 2 years, where all of them really they talk about these huge numbers, 95%, 90%, and someone was even arguing that it could be some of it maybe it's just over reporting, so it could be that you're actually sitting at 99% because it's really hard for people to move from that early stage and really put something into product level performance. So I'd like to spend a bit of some time here more concretely in the AI vision for quality control. Where is that, where do people get stuck the most? What causes that rift between just getting started and going into production?
Yeah, there's many factors here, but one is actually connected to a fun fact that was also in that report, which is what they call the dark number of projects that are actually succeeding, and what makes it dark is that these are unsanctioned projects. So there's quite a lot of savvy and interested and hardworking people out there in the industry who basically hack together their own solutions using GPT and using generative AI, but not as an official project, but rather something that they want to do because they want to improve their efficiency themselves. And what that signifies is that it's extremely important to work directly with the boots on the ground and those who have the expertise, because they know how to translate what they want to do or what they are currently doing into better automated processes. And that is one of the big areas where pilots can get stuck, because quite a lot of technologies out there are not very nimble. They're not very adaptive. You can, there's a lot of tools even you can download for free, right? And they're sort of do it yourself, plug and play, and stitch together, drag and drop solutions for a lot of things. And if you just happen to be lucky and you fall squarely into some standard use case scenario, you might end up with a very useful, very powerful solution quite quickly. That's fantastic. Unfortunately, mostly that's not really the case. Mostly you have to spend some time understanding someone's problems, understanding one's parameters deeply. So either you then have to switch to a proper solution mode where you really learn and adapt and build something, but then you're quickly out of a pilot and into just a joint research project. Or you have to build something, give someone a platform that allows the boots on the ground to build it themselves using their expertise. But there the difficulty is that translating tools into a format where anyone can do it, even though they only have their own domain knowledge and they're not AI or vision experts, that's very difficult. That's where we come in to a large degree, trying to make that a lot easier for the boots on the ground.
Yeah, and I've often seen that there's some tension, especially when I speak to manufacturing leaders. Where you have a situation where the domain experts, to your point, are the people who are coming across these challenges on a daily basis. They need the tooling to be able to rapidly iterate, test their hypotheses, and see if that works. At the same time, central IT wants to be able to govern this process so that not everyone is just using ChatGPT, so you get this shadow AI kind of thing going on. What's your thought on how best sort of like to balance that governance with the flexibility at the edge?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm very pragmatist on this. I think if you have And fun thing is, the better your people, the higher your risk of these shadow projects happening, because people see inefficiencies and they want to solve it, and they know there's a tool, and then they probably won't be, it will be difficult to rein them in governance-wise, to make sure that they are doing it in a sanctioned way. From a pragmatist perspective, I would say be more laissez-faire about it, with some relatively strict and clear goalposts and guidelines. But essentially, and we're getting back to my ethics credentials, I would recommend more of a virtue ethics approach rather than a deontological approach, where the deontological one postulates absolute rules, rights and wrongs. Right? You cannot do this, and you must do this, and this is forbidden, and this is categorically wrong. And then you can get a very long list of everything that you're not allowed to do, and that can greatly hamper things. But mostly it will probably not stop development, it will just drive it underground. So then you have no visibility of what's happening. And I would rather advocate for the virtue ethics approach, which is educating your engineers, or relying on the confidence that your engineers are not malicious agents. They're trying to do the best. And as long as you give them reasonable amount of freedom, but instill in them the knowledge that, don't try to not do something that is messing with people, or that is doing some harm here, they're probably going to do a much better job, and they're going to do it in the open, and you do get the ability to oversee and stop a project if it goes overboard, or if it goes in a different direction. But much better to have that visibility than to have it done in the shadows.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Now, going through some of your content, I've seen you make a really interesting argument here about the fact that winning in the future when it comes to AI, best quality control, any AI powered system for that matter, it's not going to be so much about having a bigger or better AI model, but rather it's going to be about having like a better end-to-end system. And I think that's a perspective that a lot of people need to hear, because I think the default thinking currently is more centered around the model itself, right?
Yeah.
So maybe can you unpack that for us? What does that system level thinking actually look like in practice, and why do you believe that's where the real competitive advantage lies?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you for the excellent question. If you just throw compute at it and spend all of your time and resources on a model that is extremely performant, then you might indeed end up with a super performant model. And what do you do with that then? Let's say you have a complex production line that has 20 different important parameters, reporting structures, different systems that are talking to each other. You have to report internally, you have to report to your supplier, you have to report to your end customer. You have a bunch of legacy systems that are plugged in here and there as well. I'm sure you've seen that popular graphic that always floats around on LinkedIn, where it shows your modern infrastructure, and then it's like the stack of different technologies, and on top is the shiny new AI, and then somewhere on bottom is that Excel script from 2006 that an intern wrote at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you don't pay attention and respect to this, what good is a model if you cannot situate it, if you cannot place it into the larger context where its performance can actually do very well? And you can look at real world examples where the aim was to, let's say, replace human inspection, because nobody wanted to do it. People were rotated through, and it took too long. And you end up with an extremely performant model that is doing super well, much better than any human could. But because of the clunkiness of everything around it, the way you had to load it, the way you had to go through the steps, and the uneasiness or the difficulty of reviewing the results of the model, it ended up taking more time for a human operator than if they just do it themselves, and then it collects dusts again, right? So even though you have this best model, if the actual translation into the real world scenario isn't also taken into consideration and also streamlined and developed to a point where it's truly elevating things, you're not winning anything. And that's why it's so important to have that system perspective and have everything connected. And that's why we are building things modular and in a connected way. So whatever we deploy when we're working with let's say a manufacturer, we make sure that what they have, let's say the UI, in the end is exactly what they need. No other fluff, no other bits and pieces. It just does exactly what the operator needs to see, and it truly makes their life easier. That's where we're coming from.
Absolutely. So maybe let's actually get into what you are building. You've recently launched something called Zelia, which is your end-to-end learning and inspection assistant. So I would love for you to, for audience, just kind of like give us, an introduction into what Zelia is, and then break it down for our listeners. What does it do, and how does it fit into that, systems level approach that we were just talking about?
Yeah. So Zelia is our latest translation of the technology that we have been developing, which is based on synthetic data primarily. And that is really trying to achieve a level of democratization of this technology that is unprecedented so far. So usually you have these two types of providers in the machine vision space, right? It's the DIY toolkit providers, and then there's the solution providers. The DIY toolkit providers hand you a system, maybe with hardware, maybe without it, but you just get the platform, and then the responsibility is placed on you. Or, as we like to say it, the difficulty is externalized to you. So now it's on you. You have to collect data. You have to do the curation. You have to do the first training, second training. You have to select which model you want to use and train. And then you are basically placing yourself in a research project. Someone has to sit down, collect all of the data, label it, curate it, do the training, and then hopefully arrive at something usable, right? And even if you then have a model that is performant, you still have to build the entire inspection solution and the whole platform around it that actually lives on the line, does the inspection, gives you the reports, shows you where the defects are, and so on. And that's doable, yes, but it consumes a lot of resources. And the more complex your product, and the more complex your context, your production context is, the more difficult this becomes. Then on the other hand, you have the solution providers, which take care of all of this for you, which can be very powerful. It tends to take a very long time, but even more importantly, it tends to be extremely expensive. Right? If you talk to even the big players, right, they always have their different tiers, the level of support. And if you go to the highest full solution tier, it tends to be extremely expensive. And what we are aiming for with Zelia is to essentially provide the second mode, which is the solution mode, but in a format that allows you to do it DIY. So basically, we are looking to package an agent that is orchestrating our tech stack for you. So you don't need to have our engineers doing it for you, but instead it's Zelia doing it for you. So equally, as you would with a solution provider, you don't have to do the work. You don't have to sit down and collect thousands of images, do all the labeling, the curation, and so on. Zelia does all of that for you. Instead, Zelia works like a human, right? Like a human solution provider, or if you're teaching a new QC worker. You show a few samples. In our case, we recommend at least 5. A couple more certainly doesn't hurt, but 5 would be your starting point of good samples, and then also 5 examples per defect or parameter that you want to inspect. And from there, the Zelia synthesizes both its understanding of your substrate, of your good sample, basically, as well as the defects. It then verifies that with you, that it has properly understood the properties of your product and what it is supposed to recognize and what not. And as soon as you reach alignment, which is usually within, let's say, less than an hour or so, you can make sure that it has properly understood what you wanted to inspect. It can then use the data it has generated to train very accurate models. And these models can then be plugged into the flagship product that we have been developing for even longer than Zelia, which is Spectron. Spectron is the actual solution, which we have built in such a modular way that it's very easy to set up for whatever needs for a given project.
Yeah. So maybe just to make sure that I understand it correctly. So Zelia is more around the training, the preparation of the data, and the training of the model, and then it hands that over to Spectron to
yes. That's how it's currently set up. However, of course, our larger tech roadmap is to fully automate the entire thing. So
yes.
Let's say, optimistically, by the end of this year, Zelia will do everything. It will use all of the components from Spectron as well as everything on the training side. So by the end of the year, you should be able to literally walk up to Zelia and say, I would like to inspect this object, and I'm looking for scratches, bubbles, and dents. And Zelia will ask, okay, can you give me a couple of examples each? Then it will verify with you, yes, these are indeed the good samples, and these are the defects. It has understood it correctly. How would you like the inspection dashboard to look like? And then it uses the building blocks of Spectron to put together a custom dashboard and solution for you, including the architecture, including all of the connectors, whatever API connection you might need to plug it into your IoT management or whatever, all fully autonomously, essentially. That's the vision. To some degree, that's already working. The training part is already fully automated. The rest, we're still working on it, but should be there soon.
Yeah, I mean, that's really super interesting approach because essentially, to your point, I mean, we've always had this divide where you get a solution that requires you to actually be a data scientist effectively for you to use it. Yet all you want to do is to be able to just concentrate on what you're doing your best, right? And then you kind of like fuse those worlds by essentially putting Zelia as a digital teammate, right? To help you with that specific process. And then I envision that you're obviously going to get more. And I think this is where really things are going, where all these systems, are going to become that system of record, while you have that agentic capabilities like Zelia actually, helping you sort of like work through those systems. So I think that's a really interesting approach. So I think one thing that I would like to dig into regarding that is more on the human side of things, right? Because as we talk about these digital, teammates, AI agents, we start to get this blur on the line on how do these interact with humans? What's the role of humans in that specific relationship, right? So in your workflow with Zelia, what role does human feedback play, and why is that important?
Yep. I think still connected even to the previous question. What we're trying to generate is, like I said, a kind of GPT moment where we can provide something that is as powerful in our world as GPT was in another world. So if you're looking at the teammate perspective, in order to do some of the things that GPT can do very easily now, you would have had to hire a very expensive analyst, for example. If you have a bunch of text-based data and you want to have a summary of it or do market research, for example, which is one of the biggest ones, right? Very expensive analysts can do the same thing, but it would take them longer and it would be much more expensive, right? And in the same way, we are looking to give you this, right? A replacement for having to hire your own in-house data team. But similar to the way an in-house team would collaborate in most cases with the people doing the production, the same way Zelia collaborates more than it, let's say, replaces. Or Zelia together with Spectron. An image that I like to use quite often is imagine not like a robot walking into your factory telling everyone, okay, you can go home now, I'll take over, I know how to do everything better anyway. But rather think of it like handing your best people a supercharged magnifying glass that draws their attention exactly where they need to pay attention to and apply their human expertise and judgment. Maybe in the far future that can be even further, but that's currently the main mode. So it really is operating like a smart assistant, but it will, especially in this inspection world, we constantly come across so many outliers. We come across so many edge cases, so many possibilities of contamination or things that could be fixed. Essentially, every day you come across something that has never been seen before. And a human, based on his or her experience and expertise, can make very good judgments, right? And this feedbacks into the system, again, makes it better, but it's still very important to have that. So it's usually human in the loop systems that we are deploying at the moment.
Yeah, and then maybe just to put you on the spot here, do you have an example or a figure of how much savings do you think having Zelia work alongside with your team could save? How much time would someone spend just doing that preparatory work without Zelia? And so maybe it's in terms of of hours or saved, or things like that.
Yeah, that can very, very, very quickly be extremely expansive. So if you imagine you're doing a classic machine vision case, and we've recently talked to some people in the glass manufacturing industry who are trying to make a system work, and they collected 100,000 images. 100,000 images, hand curated, hand labeled. Now, if you say, even if you use an auto labeling tool, some of those out there make it faster. But let's say you still have to spend 3 seconds or so, at least. Let's be generous, be quick. 3 seconds for 100,000 images just on the labeling. It's a lot of time. That's quite a lot of time. And that is just the labeling. That is not the collection. That is not having to pick up the piece, putting it under the camera and capturing the image. that is not waiting for an alarm on the line or waiting for the report of someone to show, hey, we have that error has occurred again, and so on. The amount of time that you can save potentially by only having to show a couple of examples and defect images is, we're talking about weeks or months of manpower that can easily be saved.
Oh, yeah, that's incredible. So let's talk about something that I think a lot of manufacturers would be interested in. Where does your AI actually, run, right? Or maybe just to get your take, first of all, on what you think about AI running at the edge and AI running in the cloud. What are the, limitations and what are the benefits? And then speak to us about how your solution is deployed and where does it run?
Yeah, each has its advantages and disadvantages. Most importantly, you maintain close control over what's happening if you have it run on the cloud. But what we see very often is that manufacturers are very, very, very cautious about any cloud-connected revelation of what they consider to be some of their most important and most sensitive data. Because if you're doing quality control, you have it's like looking into someone's drawers. Basically, you see the skeletons in the closet, right? And nobody wants to air those. Nobody wants to have anyone have full scans of their products, including all of the properties, measurements, QC parameters, right? So we see most people in this space definitely asking for on-the-edge solutions. And that is true in many industries, I think. There are use cases where maybe cloud connection is doable, but especially in our space, we definitely see people wanting to run things on the edge.
Interesting. So, I mean, I think initially at the beginning of this talk, we spoke about this idea that it's hard to, try something out and, to get it to production level performance is kind of like, one thing altogether. But also what, a lot of manufacturers that I talk to, or generally not about AI, digital transformation, industrial IoT, it's just, being able to take what worked in one plant and repeat it on another plant or another line, multiple, if it's an enterprise manufacturing company. Can you speak to us on sort of like what are the scaling challenges that most teams underestimate when they try to make that leap of deploying, and more specifically to sort of like AI-based quality control?
Yeah, that's a very good point as well. The problem is there is no two lines that are the same. They might be very, very similar, but it's never exactly the same. And the people who are running these plants, they tend to know. In many cases, upper management thinks, it should be quite easy. It's the same thing, right? Same product. What's the difference? But then when you talk to the people running the factory, they tell you that this machine is from 1988 and has been upgraded in 2006. And the other line is 10 years younger and has not been upgraded. So there's quite some differences in the way this operates and this operates. We run this part of the production line a bit hotter than this one. But in the end, it equalizes because there is another step in here, and this air blade has an effect on that part of it, and so on. There's minuscule details, but they factor into the production very often, and that changes the way a product might present itself in different steps, for example. And if you're doing what is probably the most powerful type of quality control, which is multi-step quality control, so you're actually checking the product at many steps of a production line, that becomes just extremely visible, right? Because you simply cannot copy and paste. It's not the same. It looks different at a different line, even though you're technically in the same step. But even if you have exactly, let's say, even if you had exactly the same machine, running exactly the same product, even there you will run into cases where, because of the way it is set up there, there's just some small change in the condition that makes it slightly different, and it requires some intelligent fine-tuning and oversight of what's happening there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always fascinating the difference in perspectives that people in the carpeted side of the business, the IT people and people are working on the shop floor. I was talking to one AI leader who works for a company in the US. He was saying to me they actually have one of the machines that they have as part of their fleet is from 1950. It actually still has a signature from, is it Thomas Edison? I don't know who it is there. just gives you a sense of how old that is. And then you have to treat it as if it's like a machine from 2010. You can understand the difference in really how you need to instrument around it, how you need to do things differently just to make sure you onboard it into your digital infrastructure the same way as other pieces of equipment. So that's super interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's so important to allow for the expertise input and capture, right? That's why if we're working in a solution mode, we just spend a lot of time with the people running the machines, doing the inspection currently manually, explaining to us how things work, and then make sure that we capture that and translate that into an automated business and automated solution. And with Zelia and our vision for this democratized solution provider is to do exactly that as well. You actually tell quite a lot about your circumstances, and you can go back and forth with the agent to arrive at something that is truly suitable and is truly tailored to exactly your needs, not the other way around, not you trying to somehow produce the right data to fit into whatever is being provided to you, but rather have that what is provided to you make itself fit for your own context.
Awesome. Right. So I know you've kind of like given us a bit of a hint on what's next, with Zelia, but I'm curious to find out more about the bigger vision, right? What's the full potential of Zelia as you see it? So sort of like, where are you taking this? Maybe not only in the next few months, but in the next few years.
Yeah. So as you rightly pointed out, I've already hinted at quite a bit, having the fully automated solution that not only does the model training, but also builds the actual full solution for you in an inspection context. Going even further, we want to expand the capabilities of Zelia beyond defect inspection and measurements into even broader inspection, looking at large volumetric inspection, looking at outdoor inspection. But even further than that, we're essentially aiming to build a solution that transforms anything that captures visual data in one format or another into an intelligent solution that can solve something for you. So be that dedicated hardware that is put into place in order to solve something, or tapping into existing systems to build and make it better and smarter. Either is possible. And if you're going down that route, you can even see it as part of the trend that everyone is talking about now with physical AI. Because ultimately, let's say in 5 years' time, we would like to give you something that is so powerful that it even auto configures and builds the hardware for you, or comes in a platform where it not only tells you what to do and does all of the software, but also helps you actually build the entire thing, including even humanoid robot, right? That carries exactly the kind of sensors that you require.
Absolutely. So again, just to put you on the spot here. So what I like to do with our guests here before we close the session is to kind of like get them to make a prediction. Because when I started this podcast, it was also as a result of the GPT moment, right? So before that, I was doing podcasts focused mostly on connectivity, industrial IoT. But when that phase happened for me, I saw that a lot of leaders, manufacturing leaders, maybe they don't quite grasp the shift that is imminent, right? So I try to get some guests to give us a prediction on what you see, what's your vision of the future factory, what you think is going to happen in the next few years. Just a wild prediction.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a major acceleration now. The speed at which models are getting better, the speed at which we are seeing also embodied AI or physical AI making progress is quite significant. And the industry has seen it now. The industry has recognized it. So anywhere you look, every single manufacturer is allocating a significant budget to automation. Every major investment firm is investing very heavily. Governmental programs are investing extremely heavily in AI development. That is a wealth of resources, which surely is going to translate into major breakthroughs in quick succession. And you can already see it if you pay attention in many spaces. So I think the significant advances in automation are just around the corner, and it's going to be easier and more streamlined to get there. Every month it's going to get better, and we're trying to be part of this revolution, make it easier and easier to harvest the power of these extremely powerful tools out there.
Absolutely. So Willem, before I let you go, is there anything else that you would like to say to our audience? Anything that we missed out on? You've got any exciting updates coming up? Are you've got any trade show appearances or website? Anything?
We'll be definitely at the Hannover Messe. We'll also be at the Change Now conference in Paris, which is shining a spotlight, especially also on companies that they deem can have a positive contribution on green goals of especially manufacturing. But what I would also invite your listeners to do is check out Zelia. If you want to have a go at it, do reach out. We're very happy to let you try and very keen to gather some feedback there as well.
Absolutely. So we're going to provide links to is it a web page where they can sign up to try it out? Yes, we're going to provide links to that in the description below on the podcast and also on YouTube and all the other relevant links of what we discussed during this session. So Willem, it's been such a fascinating conversation for me. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure our audience will find it useful as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you very much. I very much enjoyed it.